Basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get instantly $50 when you play $5. That's right, $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed when you use the promo code CLNS. That's CLNS. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts and is available in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Prize Picks is truly the best way to win real money with all the various opportunities to play and collect your winnings. Due to the enormous selection of players, stats, types available, we can mix and match our playing strategies based on personal preferences. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. And for those who love a quick win, Prize Picks is the way to go. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use the code C as in Charlie, L as in Larry, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, with Prize Picks, it's as simple as picking more or picking less. And again, that promo code to get the $50 after you play your first $5 lineup is CLNS. Prize Picks. Run your game. What's up, everybody? Gerald Brown back here for another episode of Heavy in the Paint, and it's all about the Jets, NFL free agency, the beauty of the NFL, and you know what? It's a privilege and an honor to have this gentleman who breaks it down like none other. Bleav in Jets podcast is where you can catch him, as well as over your radio waves, the one and only Mr. Rami Lavi joining me here, Heavy in the Paint. Rami, let's get right to it. Let's not pull any punches. I was stunned just like everyone else when the decision to go after Justin Fields and to sign him, especially when the fact of the matter is it doesn't seem like this was a favorite selection and a rich, robust class that everybody sees. It's not the case when it comes to quarterback free agency situation. As you had a couple days to let it sink in and marinate, what's your overall thoughts on Justin Fields being now the Jets quarterback?
I don't really understand it, to be honest, because if you're looking at him as a bridge quarterback, you had the bridge quarterback. You had Aaron Rodgers, right? So if it's just a bridge to whoever's next, then great. You had Aaron Rodgers already to be that bridge quarterback. So why would you go? You're paying Aaron Rodgers anyway. Why would you go pay another $20 million a year for a guy who is a worse bridge quarterback? And so what I think the Jets think is that, yes, he's a bridge quarterback, but we also have a chance that maybe we find the guy. Maybe this is our Geno Smith in Seattle or our Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Well, what do those two guys have in common? They revived their careers by leaving the Jets, not by coming to the Jets. So if you think all of a sudden Justin Fields is going to turn into something he's never been his whole career just because he's coming to a new situation with a defensive head coach, with a defensive culture, not a place that's known for developing great young quarterbacks, I just don't see how that happens. And the problem is, and this is my biggest issue with it, it's not that they'll go 2-14 or 2-15 and be the worst team in the league. If they do that, that's fine. Then you could just draft a quarterback in the draft at the top of the draft next year. My problem is they win 6-7 games and Justin Fields shows flashes of brilliance like he's prone to do, like he's done his whole career. He has shown flashes of brilliance. If he does that, the Jets are going to talk themselves into him being the quarterback of the future, give him some absurd contract, and then we're looking at this 2 years from now like, wow, why do we have Justin Fields as our starting quarterback? So, look, he's not a franchise quarterback. The best case scenario is somehow he looks like a franchise quarterback. What does that look like for me? Like, how do I think that he has to look? He has to basically win a playoff game or at least perform well enough in a playoff game, put up 30 points in a playoff game, and they lose not because of him to convince me that he can be a franchise quarterback, because I've seen too much from him to tell me that he's not a franchise quarterback. But I know how this goes. Jets fans, Woody Johnson, this staff, and Aaron Glenn, who already told you that quarterback is, quote, not the most important position. Every position is super important. This is a guy who, again, had Jared Goff as his quarterback in Detroit. But what happens to Jared Goff every year when he gets into the playoffs? He turns back into a pumpkin. He turns back into Jared freaking Goff. You need a franchise quarterback once you get into the playoffs. So I just feel like this franchise and their history, they're going to see some flashes. They're going to see him running downfield with 60-yard runs. They're going to see a couple of big plays here and there, and they're going to say, this is the guy, and they're going to commit to him, and that's the problem with him. Not that he's going to be awful, that he's going to be mediocre with just enough flashes that convinces this terrible ownership and terrible team and just a franchise with a horrible quarterback history that he's the man for the future.
You know, they got to get this thing right at some point. You know, luck just has to, you know, err on the side for the Jets, because you think about it. You touched on this, and you actually posted it on Instagram, and that's where I saw it. And I said, you know what, you hit it right on the head. Because think about it. This franchise, the development of the quarterback has really struggled because, again, I don't know if you want to admit, I don't know if you agree with it or not, but really not a strong offensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator and an offensive system that you can come in and say, you know what, take your time. And it just seems like it's constantly like a broken record and doing the same thing over and over. Because think about it. The Jets have, and if you go back through their history, go back Neil O'Donnell in terms of going in the free agency route to try to get a quarterback. That didn't work out. They go and try to draft quarterbacks, which you just talked about. Hasn't worked out. They've tried to trade for quarterbacks. That hasn't worked out. At some point, it has to be something that will work for this team. But as you look at this quarterback market and this free agency, how surprised were you that they went after it? Because I think the last time we talked, I thought that clearly, look, another year of Aaron Rodgers wasn't a bad idea, simply because the market for free agent quarterbacks wasn't really a robust one. How surprised were you that they decided to go that route in Justin Fields?
To me, it was interesting. And by the time we got to free agency, it wasn't that surprising because all the rumors started coming out that that's who they're going after. But to me, what's interesting is there were two paths. There was, hey, let's get a bridge quarterback and just try and be competitive, try and break this 14-year playoff drought. That was path one. And to me, the best option if you're going down that path is Aaron Rodgers. And path two was, let's stink and let's go into the draft next year. Maybe we take a day two quarterback this year, see if he can play. If not, we'll have a quarterback in the draft next year. And to me, that would just be stick with Tyrod Taylor and draft Jalen Milroe. Now, I still think they're going to take a day two quarterback, maybe a Jalen Milroe. I have a hard time believing they're going to look at that quarterback when they have Justin Fields, and Justin Fields shows flashes, and Justin Fields ends up on SportsCenter a couple of times. And that's my problem with it. Like they basically landed somewhere in the middle. They landed in no man's land. Like they're not going for it and trying to just say, hey, let's get the bridge quarterback. We know this isn't the future of our franchise. They're not going for it with it. They're not trading up to get Cam Ward. If they traded up tomorrow to get Cam Ward and still had Justin Fields, great. Then all this is not a problem anymore. I don't know why you pay Justin Fields $40 million if you were just going to go get Cam Ward, but fine. Then I'd be happy. Then it's like, okay, you got the best quarterback in the draft. You want him to sit a year behind Justin Fields? Sure. But like you said, this franchise has never been able to get a quarterback. Now, do I believe that just because you've never been able to do it, you won't be able to do it? No. Like, the best way to get a franchise quarterback is to just keep taking swings at the franchise quarterback, right? I mean, look what Josh Allen has changed the franchise in Buffalo. Lamar Jackson changed the franchise in Baltimore. Like, it just happens. Eventually it happens, and you find a guy and the right guy. And even Jaden Daniels, right? Washington is a terrible franchise, and Jaden Daniels comes along, and in 1 year, they didn't get a better offensive line. I know they spent a ton of money this offseason, but they didn't get a better offensive line. They didn't get a better defense. They didn't go out and get tons of skill position players. They just got the right guy. So when you have the right guy, it changes everything. And it's also why I think like teams like New England and Chicago who are trying to convince themselves that Caleb Williams and Drake May are the guy, I'm not so sure. Because guess what? When you're the guy, we know right away. Like with Jaden Daniels, it's unbelievable. Even Bo Nix and CJ Stroud the year before. So I'm not confident that this is the right move. And also, if your whole point was to try and revive, quote unquote, Justin Fields' career, why would you get rid of Devontae Adams?
Yeah, that was the thing that was so it was kind of head scratching, because you got rid of Devontae Adams, and maybe obviously that could have been financial reasons, cap concerns, but you sort of lose that guy, and now you're in a situation. And I think the biggest thing is you're hearing, well, Justin Fields is reunited with Garrett Wilson and stuff. Rod, I honestly believe, Rami, that they're still going to swing for a quarterback in this draft. And Shedeur Sanders probably is the guy that clearly, if they take him, let him sit for a year or two, and then now you can sit back and say, hey, look, we got our guy. And then, look, if Justin Fields comes out and has an unbelievable season, well, you got Shedeur Sanders there dangling that you can trade for a quarterback need team. How surprised would you be if Shedeur Sanders, because Cam Ward is likely going to be in a situation, obviously, if you don't get him, if you have Shedeur Sanders there, how surprised would you be if the Jets decided to take a quarterback? Or better yet, how surprised would you be if they didn't take one in this upcoming draft?
I think they will take a quarterback. I just don't think it'll be a first-round pick. I don't think we're looking at – and Shedeur is going to be a first-round pick, and I don't know if Shedeur even lasts to 7, because you have 3 quarterback-needy teams at the top of the draft, and really the consensus is only 2 really good quarterbacks at the top of the draft, and even then, people don't consider them to be great quarterbacks, right? So whatever the Giants do today, if they sign Aaron Rodgers, I think the Giants still need a quarterback. So whatever they decide to do – if I'm the Giants, I'm still trying to trade up to 1 to get Cam Ward. If I'm the Titans, I still want to take Cam Ward at number 1. So Shedeur Sanders is going to go to either Cleveland or the Giants, or whichever team doesn't end up getting Cam Ward. That's what I think is going to happen. So I would be shocked if the Jets take a quarterback at 7. I wouldn't be shocked if they take a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round, like a Jalen Milroe, like I mentioned. Those kind of guys, or I think it's Kyle McCord is the kid from Syracuse. So
yeah,
there are a bunch of options that are later in the draft in the draft that I could see the Jets taking. I don't think they're going for a quarterback at 7. And again, like you said, he's reunited. Justin Fields is with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is going to be triple teamed. I mean, Xavier Gibson is your number 2 receiver. Xavier Gibson sucks. He is awful. And so why would anyone in their right mind not put any less than 3 guys? Now, what could be really fun with this Jets offense, they do have a good offensive line. Despite losing Morgan Moses, they need to replace the right tackle, but they have a good, solid young offensive line. The rest of this, the rest of the offensive line, they have the 2-headed monster running backs in the backfield with Braylon Allen and Breece Hall. And if you get a guy like Tyler Warren in the 1st round, where now you're a ground and pound kind of game with a great blocking tight end who can also be a really good receiving tight end out of the backfield, then you're just running these jumbo sets, these 2 running back sets with the big tight end and Tyler Warren, and then you're just got Garrett Wilson one-on-one on the outside. I mean, that could be a really fun offense. Do I trust Tanner Eggstrand, who's 30-something years old and never called a play in his life? Do I trust him to figure that out and put this together? No, but I don't have a choice, so I'm going to have to go with some blind faith here.
Rami, how much of a slap in the face would it be if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants, has success? Last year, Hard Knocks offseason featured Joe Shane and the worst position he could be in, and having the whole situation play out in front of millions in regards to them letting Saquon Barkley go to the Eagles nonetheless, and they win the Super Bowl. How much of a slap in the face would it be for the Jets if Rodgers goes to the Giants and this Giants team wins and has success?
You know what the irony in all that is that the Hard Knocks offseason, what looked bad for Joe Shane and the Giants, was John Mara wanted to keep the player, but he let the people he hired to do their job. So everyone hates on John Mara for that. He was right to do that. He made the right move. He stayed out of it. Hey, he said, this is what I want, but I'm going to let you guys, almost to a fault, let the football people make the football decisions. Whereas the Jets, it's the exact opposite. If we had cameras in the Jets facility this offseason, you'd see Woody Johnson saying, he made fun of my son on Pat McAfee. He can't come back as the quarterback. We can't have Aaron Rodgers. Whereas I think Aaron Glenn and Darren Mucci would have been more than happy. In fact, I think the only reason they hired Darren Mucci was because they saw him cut ties with Russell Wilson the way he did in Denver.
Wow.
Darren Mucci didn't interview anywhere else for a GM job. No one even interviewed him for a GM job. So all of a sudden, this was your pick. This was your coveted pick for a GM job. I don't think he was getting a GM job anywhere else but the Jets. The Jets are the only team that interviewed him. And I think a big part of that was what he said, hey, here's a guy who just swallowed. We know that he swallowed the cap hit in Denver and was willing to get rid of their veteran quarterback and Russell Wilson. Let's bring him here and have him do the same. I think this is a Woody Johnson decision. He was embarrassed. He was insulted by Aaron Rodgers. It's not a football decision, and Aaron Glenn said it would be. It wasn't a football decision because the football decision doesn't make sense to pay Aaron Rodgers to play somewhere else, but that's what's going to happen. Look, if he goes to the Giants and he has success with the Giants, I would be surprised. I think the Giants are not particularly good. They're not a very good roster, so it would surprise me if he had success there. I think if he goes to Pittsburgh and they play the Jets at MetLife Stadium this year, they're going to put that on opening night, and the dude's going to drop 5 touchdowns on the Jets' head, and they're going to keep cutting. They're going to keep cutting to Woody Johnson sitting in his suite, and I'm going to love it. I'm going to be so happy. I never root against the Jets. But when Aaron Rodgers comes back to MetLife Stadium and he's dropping dimes on their head and he's carving up Sauce Gardner and he's just looking at the sideline and just giving the finger to Woody Johnson, I'm going to enjoy it so much because Woody Johnson is the man who continues to run this franchise into the ground, continues to make the wrong choice. And the giant chip that Aaron Rodgers is going to have on his shoulder and what he was going to want to do to this franchise for letting him go and essentially blaming him for the mess that they've been for the last 30 years, it's going to be beautiful. So I hope that happens. I really do. I've never rooted for someone more than I'm going. And I've been an Aaron Rodgers stan my whole life. I've always loved Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think I've ever rooted for him more than I'm going to root for him this year.
And maybe he brings back the belt thing again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to be doing the discount double check. Maybe he'll run for a touchdown, I wasn't mobile enough for you guys. He went out and got a mobile quarterback. How's this?
Robbie, a couple questions before I let you get on out of here. You look at now this AFC East, and you look at Josh Allen, who signs a massive contract with the Buffalo Bills. You now have Drake May and the New England Patriots upgrade their team via free agency. Still early. Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill, they're still down there in Miami. How much pressure do you feel that it perhaps might have placed on the Jets that once you had a situation where obviously Sam Darnold now is going to, Geno Smith is traded, and now that domino played out and you had Sam Darnold, who clearly wasn't going back to the Jets, go to Seattle. How much do you think it might have been a sort of sense of urgency to grab someone and not be left holding the bag when it came to the Jets, especially when that Geno Smith domino fell via trade and the Raiders were out of the equation for their top free agent quarterback?
I think the contract itself that they gave Justin Fields tells you that they were desperate because I don't think anyone saw Justin Fields getting $40 million. I think that was
20 a year, 2 years, 20, right? 20 a year.
Yeah, so it's 2 years, $20 million a year. And I know it's not a ton, but right. I think they could have gotten, other quarterbacks. I think he would have ultimately, and I think Pittsburgh would have brought him back if he was $10 million a year. I think Pittsburgh was surprised that he ended up getting this number. And maybe that's why they decided to move on and say, all right, Jets, you want him, take him. So I don't know how desperate the Jets were because think about it. The other teams in the division, you're not competing with those teams with Justin Fields. You have a much better shot at competing with those teams with Aaron Rodgers. So if it was all about competing in 2025, I don't think it has anything to do with that. Now, New England loaded up, and this is what you're supposed to do when you have a rookie quarterback that you believe in, load up in free agency. You see the Buffalo Bills, they go out and they get Joey Bosa. This is what they do every couple of years. They get a pass rusher who's 2 years over the hill. That's what they did with Von Miller. Now they got rid of him. They get Joey Bosa. Okay, perfect. You're still how long is Tyreek going to last in Miami before he decides I want to trade? He already said it, and then he's like, yeah, I was kidding. And now it's like, okay, maybe I do want to trade. They went and got Zach Wilson to be their backup quarterback. And I know the Jets are terrible. They have a terrible history with quarterbacks, and everyone who leaves gets better. Zach Wilson's not getting better. Zach Wilson is a terrible quarterback. I can't wait. And look, I don't root for injury, but we know Tua is going to miss some time at some point this year. I cannot wait for Zach Wilson to be thrust into the starting job at some point this season, for Dolphin fans to have to root for that kid because he is awful. Now, the Jets essentially have Zach Wilson 2.0 with Justin Fields. He's slightly more athletic. He can't throw the ball as well. And the same problem that he has is he can't make the simple plays simple. He makes everything look difficult. Everything is impossible. So, I don't think it was a pressure for this year. I really don't. I think they see this as a bridge option. They see this as, hey, let's see if we can catch lightning in the bottle. Let's see if 26, he somehow matures and become this quarterback that he's never been anywhere else in his career. Let's see what happens. I thought I saw something. He has like a 13-16 record in one-score games in the fourth quarter. Like he always loses in the fourth quarter. Something crazy. The guy is not a particularly good quarterback. We know that. But I think they think that they're going to now draft someone in the draft in the second round, and they don't need to use a first-round pick. They don't need to spend a ton of cap space on a big-time quarterback. They see it the way.
I think they do. I think
Of course they do. Every team does.
You got to get Shedeur Sanders, because if you're able to get Shedeur Sanders, and I mean any Jackson Dart, if you take a quarterback in that first round, look, Atlanta did it. It didn't work out well thus far with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix and just the fan base. I think you allow the fan base to now honestly say, hey, look, if Justin Fields doesn't work out, he's under pressure to perform. We got Shedeur or Jackson Dart or Cam Ward, whomever, right here. We got to have some. They can sit back and say, okay, look, we got a chip right here that we have to bank on, because, like you said, I mean, they got to do something. You can't just keep doing this in this fan base and stuff. And
I agree, but I don't think they believe that, though.
Yeah.
Like, again, based on what Glenn said, Glenn literally said it himself. He said the quarterback's not the most important position, and he's wrong about that. But again, this is the guy's history. The guy's history is Detroit, so Jared Goff is not a great quarterback. They're never going to, I'll tell you this right now, Detroit's never going to win a Super Bowl, no matter how good their roster is, as long as Jared Goff is their starting quarterback. It's just never going to happen.
Well, yeah, that remains to be seen. Speaking about Jared Goff and other teams like the Detroit Lions, give me a move thus far that's caught your attention in this NFL free agency offseason.
Well, I don't really understand what Seattle's doing, because you trade away Geno Smith, which I understand. You have 1 year left on the contract. You're trying to get a younger quarterback in there who could be the future. But then you trade away DK Metcalf, and I understand you didn't want to pay him. And it's, by the way, the Steelers, not known for paying a ton of money for big-time wide receivers, so good for them.
Yeah.
But why would you trade away your best wide receiver, cut another one of your best wide receivers, and then go out and sign Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold just coming off his best year because he was in Minnesota with Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson and that great offense. You really think you're going to recreate the magic that Sam Darnold had in Minnesota after you just got rid of 2 of your top 3 receivers? I don't see it. So that's a weird one. It's a head scratcher for me for Seattle. What direction are you going in?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because that just kind of, in a sense, we were talking about with the Jets, you get rid of Devontae Adams and stuff, and then, I don't know if it was cap purposes, but you let Tyler Lockett go, who was a sure bet. And I mean, granted, who wouldn't want to be paired up? And maybe, I don't know, look, DK Metcalf probably didn't want to be there, wanted a big contract, who knows? But, clearly, you're right. A quarterback's best friend is a pass-catching wide receiver that, again, makes defensive coordinators stay up late and study long in terms of just trying to find that piece. Listen, Rami, really, really appreciate you, my friend, giving the latest insight on all the happenings with the Jets. We have the draft right around the corner. Definitely look forward to talking to you more in depth about that. All the best, and look forward to talking to you real soon.
Gerald, appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon. And by the way, the least shocking move from free agency, the Ravens going after a wide receiver 2 years after he's been washed. Like DeAndre Hopkins, they saw that drop in the Super Bowl. Like, that's our guy. That's the Ravens for you.
Hey, you know what? He's one of the best in the business.
No disrespect, he is, but not anymore.
No, I'm talking about you. You're one of the best in the business.
Oh, I appreciate it.
One of the best in the business. Bleav in Jets podcast. Rami, before we let you get on out here, tell everybody where they can listen besides Bleav in the Jets podcast and other things you have going on.
So Bleav in Jets is the podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, I'm on YouTube. Just look up Rami Lavi, Ramilavi. It's right down there. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and catch me on WFAN, Sports Talk Radio in New York City. It's the best in the world. So just find me there.
Yeah. Like I said before, he's one of the best in the business. Rami Lavi joining me heavy in the paint.